Hello, friends, and welcome to Sleuth Studies, the Hardy Boys podcast. This is your host, Kira Drogue, signing on for another episode of exploration, adventure, fun, and, dare I say it, mystery. In today's episode, we'll chat with special guest Alexis Marie Chute and learn more about the Hardy Boys in publishing, how the publishing industry really works, what helps publishers choose audiences for specific books, and what differences there are between the types of publishing. Friends, it is an honor to be joined today by Alexis Marie Chute. Alexis is an artist, writer, curator, filmmaker, public speaker, mother, publisher, and so much more. She has over 20 years of experience as a professional, internationally exhibiting artist, with her art represented by the Art Gallery of Alberta. Alexis is a best-selling author of everything from art books to memoirs, and is the current writer-in-residence at the Edmonton Public Library. Powered by her business, Alexis Marie Productions, Inc., she's the founder of Wild Skies Art Gallery and Wild Skies Press, a hybrid publisher operating out of Edmonton, Alberta. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is so fun. I love that we can do this together.
We are going to have such a good time. I wanted to get us started with the Hardy Boys, actually, with the question that I find kind of sets the tone for a lot of these conversations. What history do you have with the Hardy Boys? What did you know about the Hardy Boys before I sent you an email and was like, "Hello, would you like to come and talk about the Hardy Boys?"
So my grandma out in BC has like this crazy basement full of treasures. Yeah, like having a grandma with treasures, it was so fun to go to her house as a kid.
Amazing.
And so I would always sneak down into her basement and she had this little stack of like super old books. I don't know if they were first edition, but they were like an early edition. Like the
Exciting.
paper was yellowing and stuff. And I would just sit in this old damp basement and just read throughout the summer. It was such an amazing experience. So
Ugh.
that's my first like Hardy Boys like deep dive was when I was super little, probably reading above my age at that time, but yeah, totally being like okay, going on these adventures in my mind. Yeah, and then also getting into Nancy Drew, like I think it's kind of like they really had this amazing mystery. I think like Scooby Doo also is like comes out of
Yes.
that time. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, like the Mystery Machine. I think that that kind of all fed into my childhood and like made me love and appreciate a good plot twist, for example.
Right? We appreciate a good plot twist. We appreciate a good mystery. I'm just appreciating that you got to explore this, like in the basement with the yellowing pages. I'm like, this is the vibe where the Hardy Boys thrive.
Totally. Well, I think the Goonies too. Like I know I'm mashing together like books and TV and movies, but yeah, like even the Goonies has that same kind of feeling of like mystery suspense, but for young readers. So cool.
Right? And it's so important. And it's so interesting to me that, this love of reading, and you mentioned reading above your reading level. I was guilty of that too from a very young age. um, kind of brought you into the publishing industry and working in the publishing industry and being an author and a publisher, which is the coolest thing, may I
It
say.
is cool. I pinch myself daily.
Honest, I feel like I would. I mean, I do too, but I feel like I would too if I was in your shoes. What encouraged you to get into the publishing industry, to, start your own publishing house? What did that process look like?
Yeah, so I think I've always been maybe not always. Okay, I'll take you back like a little bit. So like I'm also a visual artist, and so within book publishing, trying to publish your own book, trying to get your artwork out there, it's one of those scenarios where you get a lot of rejections again and again and again. And I still remember when I got my 50th rejection. And to that point, I had been like, sad, crying. Like I would put my whole heart into applications. Then that 50th one came, and I was like, you know what? I remember this so clearly. I said in my head, you don't think I can do it? Watch me. I think there was some
Yes.
like swear words mixed into there, but I was just like, you don't think I can do this? I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to find all other ways. So through that, like my husband and I started an art gallery, and through that same entrepreneurial, um, let's build it kind of mentality, we started Wild Skies Press as well. So we have Wild Skies Gallery and Wild Skies Press. And I find it so fulfilling because I think within our own writing, within our own artwork, within our own sphere, we can only do so much. Like we can do a lot, but we can sometimes the scope is limited. But I feel like by supporting other artists and writers, getting their work out into the world, I don't know, I just feel like the effect and impact I can have is amplified. So that's something that really brings me a lot of fulfillment.
No one else can see it but you, but I have the biggest grin on my face. I swear I say that every episode because there's always something that brings me such joy. But ah, that's, I'm not going to cry, but I'm just like having a moment where I'm like, this is so sweet. I love it so much. You are a hybrid publisher, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between traditional publishing, hybrid publishing, and self-publishing?
Yes. So, oh man, it is a wide spectrum. And I think that people only think I can either traditional publish or I have to self publish,
Right.
or their work doesn't get out in the world at all, which I feel like is probably the greatest tragedy out there.
Right? Breaks my heart.
Yeah, like there are so many people with important, deserving, meaningful stories out there. And that's why really I found a middle ground between these two. So with traditional publishing, you can go the route of trying to get an agent. You can, with smaller publishers, you can go right directly to them. But the process is long. I think people have maybe some, grandiose ideas that they're going to get, like a big advance and their book's going to be a bestseller. And for some, that is reality.
Hmm.
But it is a small number, right? That kind of get through that gatekeeper end of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
And then with self-publishing, like you can either do it all yourself, like you put on the construction manager hat and oversee all the different trades people who can help you
Hmm.
make a beautiful book. There's also facilitated self-publishers, like Friesen's Press, for example, who's a big, well-known one that, like, I know lots of people publish with them and they help get people's books out. But then there's kind of like this middle gray area, which is where my press exists. And that's actually how I got my first book published, was with a hybrid press out of the States. Yeah.
Oh,
So like my experience was I had an agent. He pitched my book to the big publishers. It's a story, it's a memoir, and it's a story about the death of a child. So it's a hard subject.
right.
And I got feedback from this agent from the publisher saying it was an important story, the writing was beautiful, but the subject matter was too risky for them. And I think that we're still needing the pendulum to swing more towards, like, let's have women's voices
Oh,
and women's
absolutely.
stories, yeah, like championed and promoted and not feared, right? And I just felt like, oh my gosh, the experience I've been through, I know that I was looking for literature. I was feeling like I was so alone in this.
Hmm.
And so I really wanted to create something that other people could grab a hold of and feel seen in their experiences. And yeah, so then I decided, okay, well, maybe I'll self-publish. And then I was a little bit overwhelmed with that process.
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then I remembered that I had one of my essays published in an anthology by this hybrid press in the States. They're called She Writes Press, and they really focus on women's stories. And
Amazing.
so, yeah, so through that, I found like it was such a natural fit. But what hybrid is it's um, basically a collaboration between author and publisher. So it has mutual investment. So the author does pay something, but then the publisher also contributes. So it's like mutual risk in publishing the book,
Right.
hopefully mutual reward. However, we do function outside of like that investment from the author. We function very much like a traditional publisher. What something that makes us special though is we do include like marketing and publicity, which is,
That's a big deal.
yeah, which is something that even if you traditionally publish your book, they're not necessarily going to put a huge amount of like marketing and publicity dollars behind that.
Hmm.
Like you still might need to get your own publicist. You still might need to spend money on marketing. So yeah, like I've talked to a number of traditionally published people lately who have said, yeah, that's actually one of the um, similarities to between traditional and self-publishing is that you still have to do a big chunk of the work in terms of getting the word out there yourself.
That's so interesting because I like my background is in publishing, and I spent a lot of time because I always thought I was going to end up working at, one of the big five. I was going to work in editorial. That was my like teenage dream. Clearly, I had big teenage dream ambitions. I'm like, I want to be a publisher.
I love that.
But I think I don't remember where I was going with that statement.
The marketing
Yikes.
and publicity.
The marketing and publicity. Um, Nowadays, all of these publishers are looking for, okay, what's your social media handle? How many followers do you have? Like if we're acting as the publisher, like in, classes or whatever, we're thinking about how many connections does the author have? How do we figure this author is going to be able to, take on that marketing role and sell their own books? And what's that going to look like? There's so much onus put on the author now. And I feel like it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily that way.
I don't think so either. Like I think that this is a new a new development. I don't think it has always been that, but this is the new reality of publishing is like the author has to do so much. They got to strap on their marketing hats and become comfortable talking about their work with the elevator pitch and chatting with people and selling their book at events, being online, having that presence. We're in a different world. And I think that sometimes people see the numbers, if you have a really big following, being like, oh, we're going to sell thousands and thousands of books, but you still have to have like engaged people,
Oh, absolutely.
right? So I think that, a small tribe of like really active people can still make a difference with a book that they believe in. So if you have a favorite author out there, tell your friends, be an advocate for that author because they would really appreciate it. I know it.
Well, and that's the best way to get the word out is to have someone make that connection for you. Some of the best books that I've read are because people have come to me and been like, "Hey, I think you would really appreciate this book." And I mean, is that how the Hardy Boys came into my life? Not necessarily. But that was a little bit more of a, "Oh, well, you think these books aren't for me because I'm a girl?" Turns out you're wrong. I'm just going to appreciate them and make them my entire life. Sorry, guys.
Oh, there you go. I love that.
But I mean, I tell this story often. So once I was about the right age, my grandparents started me with Nancy Drew books, and my younger brother got the Hardy Boys. And there was just a little bit more peril in the Hardy Boys. Like, I appreciate Nancy Drew. I love Nancy Drew for all that she is. I just, I don't know, as a kid, I wanted a little more like whack him over the head with a two by four. And it wasn't socially acceptable to whack Nancy Drew over the head with a two by four
Yes.
because she was a girl. And you can't do that to girls,
Well, it's nice to see now like how some of those stereotypes have left
right?
like children's and young writing, um and now we have more books for young women about adventurous topics. Like I love reading fantasy, for example,
Yeah.
and the number of heroines, that come out of that, it's inspiring and it's lovely. I love it.
And they can get into the same trouble as the boys now, which
Yeah,
is, I mean, it shouldn't have taken this long, but I'm glad that we're at a point where, I mean, that's being recognized and being represented.
totally.
That brings me a lot of joy.
Yes, because we're wild creatures ourselves, right? Why should we have safe mysteries? That's not the
Right?
case. Yeah.
Is any mystery a safe mystery? There are no safe mysteries. Just let us go at them at the same level and see who solves them first. I always joke there's one Nancy Drew and there's two Hardy Boys. And
Ah,
because it takes two boys to solve the same mystery that one girl can.
there you
Just
go.
saying. Just
Booyah.
saying.
Love it.
Oh my gosh. So, sorry, back to the like traditional hybrid self-publishing piece because I'm also interested in that financial piece because I've had people come to me and ask me because they're like, "Oh, this agent is asking me for money up front." And I'm like, "Yeah, hold up. That's not how this works." In like 90% of cases. But in traditional publishing, there's no financial investment from the author outside of, things like publicity, but like the author isn't paying the publisher, correct?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay,
The publisher pays the author in advance sometimes, and I think sometimes it is like the largest advance I've ever heard of from another human author, like not just someone I've read about online,
yeah,
um, was 12 grand, which is like that is a big chunk of change.
that's significant.
Um, but I'm wondering, like, will that person ever out uh, earn out their advance to actually earn royalties? So it's like an
Right.
just interesting negotiation. But publishing is all about taking risks. They're a big business essentially. These big publishers,
Oh, yeah.
and they have funds, but they are taking calculated risks, right? And so they're going to try to uh, not play it safe, perhaps, but I think what's beautiful about this hybrid arrangement is it's really like a team collaborative effort of taking a risk on this author's book. And I think that sometimes people do have a hard time thinking like, well, why should I have to pay, anything for my book to get out in the world? It's just the reality that like everything costs money.
Oh, exactly.
So I have like one full-time employee and two like part-time people, and so we do in-house editing, book cover design, interior design, working with distribution, pitching the book to specialty stores, indie bookstores. Like for children's books, like the Hardy Boys, for example, if I was representing the Hardy Boys, I would be like trying to get them into like children's toy stores, like Mastermind Toys, and, like
Yes.
all these kinds of other. This is what we do. We spend a lot of time like thinking like where else could we find like a home for these books. And some of our titles are really beautiful, like art books. Well, we have those in like paper stores, stationery stores.
Mm-hmm.
Like so that's something that like my team is able to do and be really nimble with. Um but like I often use the comparison like it's great if you get a scholarship to university,
Mm-hmm.
but for the majority of us who have to pay to go to university, it doesn't make our degree any less valid, right?
Totally.
Like you still come out of it with this accomplishment and you should feel pride. So that's sort of how I look at this is like you are investing in your dream. We are also, as the press, investing in that dream. And we don't accept everyone. That is one thing that does set hybrids apart from like facilitated self-publishing
Right.
is like, you can go to a facilitated self-publisher, they will edit and do all the steps and different things, but they don't really have like the same ownership in it. You're paying for their services. Whereas like we are really invested. I read every manuscript that's submitted to me cover to cover
Oh my
to
gosh.
make sure like it is actually something that I believe in. Like I
Mm-hmm.
just offered a gentleman a publishing deal for a fantasy novel, and like his novel is still like I finished reading this like a week or 2 weeks ago, and I'm still like hot and bothered by it
Love it.
because the characters are alive in my mind and I'm like, oh my gosh, and then I'm finding like just going through life, I'm finding like parallels between his story and like the real world and stuff. And so yeah, I'm super obsessed with it. So like it's that sort of relationship that we build, and working with a small team we're really able to um, collaborate in a different kind of way. Like people when they sign up, uh, when they apply, if they're accepted, they can really feel like they're talking to a real human. They can come to our
Totally.
our office in St. Albert, like we have um, a really special relationship with all of our authors.
That's so important. And that I saw the excitement and energy on your face while you're talking about this book. And that's exactly what you want. I mean, facilitated self-publishing is it feels to me very transactional. Like if you're ready to do it, you want to do it, you want to get the book out in the world. It is like it's an option, it's a fair option, it's a good option. There's also something to be said for having someone behind that book that's ready to be that champion for it,
Mm,
that's, I guess, not necessarily taking the onus off of you to be the champion for it, but it's just adding more champions.
exactly, exactly. Like we so go out into the community and advocate hard for our authors and create events for them and like all kinds of stuff. It's awesome. But I really don't want to ever um like badmouth or come across like I'm putting down any publishing journey because I feel like whether it's traditional, hybrid, self-publishing, whatever it is, like I think that people need to get their stories out into the world. There's going to be a reader. You have to find those people,
Hmm.
but I really believe that we shouldn't look negatively on anyone who decides to publish in any different way because everyone is so different. Every book project is different. Every audience for that book is different. So I feel like people just need to do their research and find the way that most resonates with them.
Exactly. It's like everyone's on a different journey and something is going to work differently for everybody. Some people want the extra support. Some people are like, no, man, I got this. And that's, I mean, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
Some people are very, very committed to that traditional publishing journey. And I think it's the journey I'd like to ask about next. So let's say that I was going to say, let's say that somebody brings you a Hardy Boys book, but I guess that would be its own, group of problems for you, copyright wise. But let's say someone brings you a book and says, "Hey, I'd like to publish it," and you fall in love with it when you read it. What does that process look like? We've talked a little bit about, the publishing process, and I feel like it's very hidden behind the veil, and not a lot of people really understand what that process looks like. And I'd love to kind of take some time and break that down from, here is this draft book that you've gotten to read that you've fallen in love with. You're seeing that final vision for it.
Yeah.
How do we bring that final vision, not version, vision to life?
So it is really it is an exciting process. So once people have signed on, we're both in it. Well, I guess I'll step back even. Like once I am like in love with a manuscript, then I'll set up a Google Meet with the author and usually fangirl over it and
I love it.
just say like I am so in love with the voice, like you've done XYZ in your manuscript or your story or your poetry and I'm in love. Sometimes I have feedback and like sometimes like there are issues to address.
Oh, of
And
course.
so that's one of the things that I think is really important why I read the manuscripts cover to cover because like there could be a great first half and if I say yes and then like I don't know what is to come.
Yeah.
That's why I really want to be on the same page with the author so that when we're moving forward we're knowing like how much editing is required and that sort of thing. So I have an amazing team. One of my colleagues, Fiona, she will help me work out the publishing timeline. So we typically are able to publish, well, we can definitely do it on a short timeline because we have done that. We've done it with a 4-month timeline as the shortest. It
A
was
4-month
that
timeline
was
from start
short.
to
That
finish.
was really short.
Did you sleep at all that entire time?
Well, so this was actually Taryn Hazard's poetry narrative poetry collection, which just came out the end of April. So I read his submission in 2025 at the end of the year, and I said, oh, if you have like 75% of the way there, these are the sort of changes if you kind of hone in the story and so I gave all his feedback,
Mhm.
and then he took it away and he resubmitted I think it was January 2026.
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you did it. You did it." And I was so thrilled because it was like it just things aligned within the writing. So it was so beautiful. Yeah, so that was a very short timeline because we wanted to release his book during Poetry Festival, which is
Right.
happening in April every year. So
Mhm.
that was a special instance, but usually we plan probably like between 6 to 12 months in
Okay.
advance, sort of a breather, giving it the whole project breathing space.
Absolutely.
I do know that that is one difference between hybrid and traditional publishing. Sometimes it can be 1 to 3 years, even after you sign your publishing deal with with a traditional publisher, that your book actually is released into the marketplace.
Oh, those timelines are so long. I say I'm working on, I've submitted an academic chapter for publication, and this process started in 2025, and I'm guessing we're looking at like 2028, 2029 before that comes out. And I mean, academic publishing is its own ball of fur. No, that's not the phrase.
Ball of yarn?
Ball of yarn. I don't know.
Uh,
Whatever that phrase
ball of
is.
wax? I
It's its
don't know.
own
It's
thing.
its own ball of
I'm
something.
like waving my arm. I'm like, it's over here in its own little world, because then you have to do the peer reviewing, and that takes time, and there's lots of back and forth for edits. Not that there isn't in traditional publishing. There's just a whole extra layer of peer review
Yeah.
in academic publishing. But those timelines are so long. And that's when you said 4 months, I was genuinely, I'm like, did you sleep? Like, that's so insane.
Well, I think it helps like that, like Karen, his project, like it really just needed like a light copy edit, a heavy proofread type of thing. So
Right.
it depends the state of the manuscript. And I do think that it is okay to submit, at least to me, a manuscript that is not like 100% polished and finished,
Okay.
because I do think that there's opportunity for us like collaboratively to then like hone and polish it together collaboratively.
Totally.
So yeah, so usually people submit. I either unfortunately do have to give some rejections, which is part of the game. But then for those people who I do accept, I get on a Google Meet, like I said, and then once we're all, the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, then we create a publishing timeline, and it has every step outlined.
Hmm.
And so then the book usually first gets its beautiful cover. It's just such a fun, oh my gosh, covers are like one of my most joyful times. I love creating book covers. And I have my Bachelor of Fine Art in Art and Design. So
Right.
I think this is something that's handy with our team, is like we all wear different hats, not all the same hats and not all at the same time, but we have a nice jigsaw puzzle of like how all of our strengths fit together. Fiona does the interior book editing. Um, Myself, Fiona, and Brooklyn, who's part of our team, we do the marketing and publicity. We like put our thinking hats on and get the book out there. Yeah, it seems like a long process, but it's really guided by us, and we make it as fun as possible. We try to create community, having author calls every month to introduce our authors together and give
Oh, that's awesome.
kind of like light professional development. Like
Hmm.
there will be people who scam you and try to like say, you can kind of tell it's chat GPT written flattery for your book, and they want you to spend money on such and such. I get these things daily.
Oh no.
Daily. It is like, yeah. But anyway, so we give professional development. We really try to make the publishing journey like fun and joyful. Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a
it
good
should bring
process.
you joy.
It should be something where your vision is maintained and you're supported throughout the whole process, and really come out on the other side with, yes, a beautiful book, but like we're also really interested in like building the author career, so that's not just like let's just release a book and move on. We want to like help our authors get opportunities to speak at different events and share their work, and that's something too that like I've learned through my own publishing journey. I think the collaborative process you don't always get as much with some of the other forms of publishing. And yeah, and I know that not everybody's a fan of hybrid, like the fact that people have to give over money to help get this process off the ground. I definitely think money is one of those line in the sand for some people.
Totally. And I
And
mean,
yeah, fair enough, right?
yeah, exactly. It's interesting too, because there's, I don't know, it's the way that you talked about risk in publishing, because it's interesting. There's so many stories that, and I make this argument very often, is there's so many stories that need to be told, deserve to be told, making sure that people's voices are making it out there. And even if it's not going to be the next great American novel, you know, there's still a place for them, and there's
Mhm.
still people out there that are going to read them and connect with them and really feel seen by them, and that's so important. And
Exactly.
finding the right way to bring those stories to life, not necessarily just for the sake of, let's make $1 million off this book. I mean, heck, let's make $1 million off this book.
Yeah.
Please sign me up for that. But not every book is going to do that. But that doesn't mean that the books that aren't going to do that, don't deserve that shot.
100%. I'm so on the same page.
I don't know, I have a lot of feelings on this, but it gets me thinking about making publishing more accessible.
Mhm.
I just It's an industry that I find lots of people don't have the opportunity to understand because so much of it happens behind closed doors.
Mhm.
Like we talk about being okay, so perfect, my book got accepted. Love that for me. It's going through an editing process. What does that look like? Well, here are the different types of editing, and here's where we start, and here's where we finish, and here's the back and forth with the author. Not a lot of people understand that process, or, how involved is the author in the cover design? Well, it depends on the publisher.
Mhm.
Like at least from my understanding, there are some cases where, here's a couple of different options, my wonderful author friend. Which one of these do you like? You can give us some feedback. We'll take it in mind. Or here is your cover. We think this is the one that will sell best. We're
Yes.
not really open to feedback. We just really like you to be like, yes, let's move forward with this cover.
Yeah, I've seen it go both ways too with people I know who are traditionally published. Exactly what you just said. And so this is where like I think that doing the research and understanding, like you're saying, the process that each company works with, because each publisher is going to have its own flavor, its own feeling.
Totally.
And yeah, so how we work at Wild Skies Press is very much like the first example you gave, where it's like we create, I guess I should say, I create and I put my heart and soul into these covers. I figure out, I have like an 8-page document that authors fill out, like telling me like their favorite colors and like all the, and putting, copying and pasting in their favorite book covers. And so
Oh my
all of
gosh,
that,
amazing.
yeah, so all of that I take in and I'm like, okay, what can I create that's going to be not just magical to sell in the marketplace, but
Hmm.
also that is going to be like, it really will resonate with this author because it's got to be like it's their book baby, right? They want to
Right.
feel so connected and excited
Yeah.
by it. And yeah, then it goes through that process of like I'll usually present between 3 and 5 cover options and people can give me feedback. Um, Sometimes the back and forth is really short, sometimes it takes a little bit longer depending on like just finding the sweet spot. But yeah, it is a beautiful creative collaboration, and I think that that's what I really love about like this hybrid model is it's for me at least, it's a relationship. It's like you're on a team. I don't play sports anymore. I played soccer a lot when I was a kid, but it's that feeling of like, you know, when where one person might not have an idea, the other one can come up, and when one um, person is like strong at editing, the other one is strong at visuals. Like we just all bring different strengths together and bring in the author as part of that team. Um, yeah, it's just so fun. It's so fun.
And that's so powerful because I mean, the author, like, they've spent so long bringing this together and getting to see it come to life. I think about the theme music for this podcast because I'm so grateful for my grant funders because they made that opportunity possible. And I remember I'm like, here are themes for, Hardy Boys TV series that might provide some inspiration. I was like, I've never really thought about what I could share with Jeff, the composer, to say, here is an idea. And I remember listening to the theme for the first time, and I was sitting on my couch and I cried. And I cry when I talk about it because it was everything I'd ever imagined, and I'm going to cry now.
Oh.
It was everything I'd ever imagined and a little bit more. And it just realizing that someone had gone through that process
Mm.
of listening to all of these things that brought me joy and really thinking about, what the intent was for this podcast and who I thought would be listening. And, you know, pulling all of those pieces together and coming up with something so beautiful. Like, I could tell that Jeff poured his heart and soul into this. And I feel like that would be the same way looking at these cover options and being like, this is, the artistic manifestation of all of this work that I've put in. Like, that has got to be such a powerful process to be a part of.
I love how you worded that. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to like go back and listen and like replay this one section. It's giving me goosebumps here. But it is, it's a magical process. Like I think so many people write, they write black letters on white paper, but then the cover is really that embodying imagery that brings it to life. It's such a special process.
I mean, people say don't judge a book by its cover, but everybody judges a book by its cover. So that cover is a really important first step. If you're like walking through a bookstore, you're like, oh, look, it's my favorite color. Oh, look, or in my case, oh, look, that's Hardy Boys blue.
Yeah.
Because embarrassingly enough, I can be like, oh, that is Hardy Boys blue, but it's Hardy Boys Case Files blue as opposed to Hardy Boys Mystery Stories blue.
Oh, see, you're a super fan.
Maybe just a little bit.
Yeah.
I should figure out what the Pantones are so I can like pull those out. But I don't know. That cover is so, so important. And I love that that's the thing that you start with because I feel like in a lot of traditional cases, and maybe I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, the editing process typically starts first with the cover coming later on once that editing is a little bit more wrapped up.
I think that probably every company is different, but I just love to have just that visual like placeholder to be like, this is what is representing the whole project. Even for myself, like right now I'm writing a paranormal thriller. It's got a little bit of erotica. Like I'm really going for it. I'm really going for
Woo!
this like super intense something. It's so different than anything I've written before. And I even just wanted to create like a template cover
Totally.
just to give myself like an anchor. Like when I'm thinking about this project, that cover comes into my mind. But I teach like writing and graphic novels and all kinds of things to kindergarten all the way up to grade 12.
Amazing.
And I often will give a little talk about book covers when we're making graphic novels in particular. And I say like how many of you have heard don't judge a book by its cover? And like all the students put up their hands.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that is wrong. Book cover design is such a science. It's an art, but it's also a science.
Hmm.
You want to convey, like somebody picking up the book should be able to gather, okay, what genre it is, what age level, appropriateness for like young people, um, the colors communicate, like all of these elements, the font choice, the imagery, everything should communicate and represent the story in some tangible way that a person just looking at the cover was like, okay, yes, this is for me, or no, this is definitely not for me, right?
Right.
And so that's the job of a good book cover. It should be like you can judge the book
It
based on
should
the
be
cover.
judged.
Yes.
I love that. And that's such a good way of thinking about it. And it brings me to another question that I find really interesting when I think about the Hardy Boys is audience. And this is a conversation that we've had in a couple of previous episodes in terms of, who's deciding who these books are for. And there's a whole bunch of different ways to look at that, especially in terms of, so, I mean, parents get to decide what kids read, and kids get to decide what kids read. And librarians make recommendations on, what would be a good fit for a kid to read. But in most cases, those are based on recommendations from the publisher. So, like the Hardy Boys, for example, maybe it's for readers between the ages of 6 and 8, or between the ages of 9 and 12. I don't remember exactly what it is for the Hardy Boys, but I remember looking at it and be like, yeah, I don't see myself in that readership.
Hmm.
Like outside of the word reader.
Yeah.
Like maybe it was for like young boys between the ages of 9 and 12. And I'm like, I am none of those things, but I still appreciate this book.
Hmm.
But it would be interesting to talk a little bit about how those decisions are made, how much the author's involved in that, and kind of what your process is for making a recommendation for, what age group this book is intended for.
Yeah, so we have like one little children's book that's out that is very obviously for like young readers. Like I think that I'm not so much about labeling
Excellent.
unless it's
Thank
like
you.
18 plus.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah, so like the fantasy book that I was just telling you about a minute ago, he definitely has like a couple subjects in there that are for mature audiences. So like I would just label that 18 plus, but I typically try to give a wide range because I do think that especially after I've been in so many schools working with students on their literacy, writing stories, oh my goodness, you can't say like, oh, a kid in grade 2 is actually reading at the grade 2 level. They might be reading below, they might be reading above. So I try to keep the age range for things quite broad.
I like that.
Yeah, and because like I'm not a young adult. I'm like I'm a solid, adult, middle life
You're a
women.
real adult.
I'm a real adult. But I love YA and new adult books. Like
Yeah.
so I don't even when I'm reading my kids their books, like we read graphic novels and all kinds of things at home, and I'm just as much invested in these stories as they are.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think like if there's sex, nudity or profanity, that is the 18 plus marker. Otherwise I kind of leave it a bit more open, except for like children's books where they want an age range, then I try to give like a broad, keep it broad.
That's fair. And is that a decision that typically, like, will you ask the author for input on that? Is that something like a decision that you predominantly make? Is that something that you're consulting with your team about? Like, what does that look like?
So that is usually like when we are working with the distributors, like
Okay, so much later on in the process.
yeah, and so many of the documents that I will send a new author who's just signed with Wild Skies Press, I'll send all these documents that ask questions like who do you see your audience being?
Right.
And so all these questions that the author answers like right at the very beginning really set the tone. We have a book coming out in July actually that is for it's sort of a, I would say Hardy Boy fans would totally love it. It's called
Ooh.
Monster Slime by Matthew Levitt. And it is sort of pays homage to like the Goosebumps era. So it
Yes.
has like just this quirky, mysterious plot. And so, but even with that book, like it would appeal to adults to read, like just a, casual kind of read for adults. And I would say like even down as far as like maybe grade 6. So it has like such a wide bandwidth of like who could read this. And so this is where when we were putting in the keywords and all the metadata that goes into the back end
Hmm.
of the book with its distribution, this is where we would put in different keywords, different bisacs. Like there's all these different
Yeah.
things that on the back end, keywords, categories. So that's one area where we do have to like niche down, and it is better to not say this book is for everyone, right? So we might say as one of our like keywords, like for fans of Goosebumps and the Hardy Boys. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Um, and so that would kind of be one descriptor. But in general, like I feel like I love to, especially when I'm talking to people, to find out what their interests are and then play to that instead of looking at like, a category of this
This
is
book says it's for 9 to 12-year-olds and you're 8.5. You can't read this.
exactly. Like even in my book club right now, we're reading a book that's very women's interests, women's issues focused.
Hmm.
It's like a magical realism. So it's still got like a fun kind of um it's all about these characters who middle-aged women who kind of get superpowers
Amazing.
and then solve like murders in their little
Glorious.
town. So yeah, so it is called it's called The Change, and
Ooh.
it's really like interesting in terms of all the different societal issues that they touch on while still being fantasy. However, like I could see a man reading it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think that to put too many arbitrary boxes around people, I think that doesn't serve anybody because we all have different interests, personalities, identities within ourselves.
Totally. Sorry, I'm going to be a little sassy. Speaking of arbitrary boxes, you mentioned BISACs and BISAC codes. For listeners who have no idea what that means, can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, so these are just like there's so much metadata that goes into the back end of releasing a book. And these are some of the things that, as a self-published author, you might have to learn.
Hmm.
But as a hybrid or traditional author, you don't necessarily have to encounter them. But on your behalf, the author will be, the publisher will be setting out um, like categories where the book would be found through a search. So it might be um, general fantasy going to um, magical realism, going to contemporary fiction. You know what I mean? So like it
Okay.
goes through sort of like a process of categorizing and like niching down. So even like, for example, it affects where the book would end up on the shelf of a bookstore or a library. Like
Hmm.
all these little pieces of metadata affect things uh, that you see, like where you would find the book in the real world.
Totally. And that's always interesting to me because I will walk into bookstores and look for Hardy Boys books. And usually I'm looking at, you know, used bookstores where it's very much here are the children's books, here are the adult books, or here's a jumble of books. Good luck. But when I go into something like chapters, I'm always curious as to whether or not these books are going to sit under the 6 to 8 category, under the 9 to 12 category, whether they're going to have any of the ones that would fit into the like YA category. Or like the Hardy Boys is an interesting example because there's a bunch of different sub-series within the series itself, sub-series within the Hardy Boys name itself. I don't know. I'm just gonna wave my arms around in circles and be like, under the Hardy Boys umbrella. But there are series intended for younger readers, there are series intended for older readers. So it's always interesting to me that choice of, okay, do all the Hardy Boys books go together in one place? Are they split out by these are the ones for the younger readers, these are the ones for the older readers? And I guess I never really think about the fact that it's not the decision of the bookseller in a lot of cases as to where those go. It's the information that they're pulling from that metadata, which
Yes,
is pulling back to the publishers.
yes. It's all connected. It's a big
It's all
spider web of
connected.
like interconnections. Yes. All these little decisions. Yeah, it has like they have like end results in the real world.
That is, oh my gosh. I want to go back to the beginning of the publishing process, actually, because you talked about that those moments where you have to make the decision of the yes or the no. And in cases in cases where that no has to come out, and maybe it's that it's just not the right fit for your press at this time. Like there's a whole bunch of different reasons that you could say no. But what is I don't want to say like what is the way that you do that? But how do authors tend to kind of accept that rejection? What does that process look like?
Yeah, well, some people get back to me and say, "Can I have feedback?" And in those cases, if I have time, we could do a Google Meet, or I give feedback by email. I also do like mentoring. Like this year, I'm doing mentoring through the library with the
Right.
writer in residence position, so people can book me to do like free 45-minute mentoring sessions. So that is sometimes a direction I point people in.
Hmm.
Um, but typically, it's like and I also have people who just go radio silent. And so then I actually have one person who I had to send a rejection email to. It just wasn't the right fit for our press, like you said.
Hmm.
And then it was like radio silence. And I know this person in the community, and I'm like, oh, don't be upset, you
You're
know?
like, oh no. Well, because the thing is, and I get this sense from all publishers, I think, is at the end of the day, you want what's best for the book. And I've got some friends that are out looking for literary agents right now, and they keep getting no's because being in the trenches and trying to find a literary agent is incredibly difficult.
Hmm.
But, they get these no's and they're coming back to me and they're like, you know, does this mean my book is awful? Like, does this mean that nobody likes it? And they're wrong. I love it. I've read
Yeah.
it. I know it's ready to go. I'm like, if I was a literary agent, I'd be behind that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, everybody wants what's best for the book. And if, a certain press or a certain person or a certain self-publishing avenue isn't the right opportunity, that doesn't mean that there isn't another opportunity around the corner.
Exactly. Well, just like how I got started with the gallery and the press, like I feel like people need to really be their own advocates and be able to look at their own work and say like, okay, yes, it's ready and I'm going to make this happen one way or the other. Or maybe I'm getting rejections and I need to take some moments for feedback and like slow down and like reflect. Maybe I need to do another round of editing. And so those are all kind of considerations like that come across my mind when, I'm reading a manuscript. Like it's not necessarily yes or no. It could be yes, later, um,
Yes, if.
soon. Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
if like there's all these like variables. And ultimately, I think I'm a good like early reader for some of these people because I read poetry, memoir, fantasy, contemporary, romance. Like I read across many genres. So what the things that I look for would be like a strong authorly voice. Like
Right.
does your voice as an author stand out? Like is it consistent all the way through? Do you have like a way and a style of writing that grabs me and hooks me? And then like is the story interesting? Is it well paced? If it's poetry, like I look at like, do the words move me? This
Yeah.
is such a subjective process. I think that's something people should always remember whenever they submit, whether it's visual art or, dance or writing or any kind of um, art practice. It's very subjective. And, like some people advise, oh, like if you don't follow all the submission guidelines properly, then you're going to be rejected, So, and for me, if the manuscript is good, I can overlook like, oh, it's not formatted properly or,
Oh
you know,
no, the naming convention they used was incorrect.
yeah, like all of these things can be, if somebody uses American spelling for things, like that can all be corrected in editing. So like I really look for the method and the meaning. The method is how the story is told, that literary voice, the author's voice coming through, and then the meaning. Like, is the story or writing itself like does it move me in some way?
Yeah,
Does it stay with me? And that's really like the magic kind of combination that I look for.
totally. And you're right. It's so personal, but it also, you want to be able to stand up behind these books and be the champion for them. And if you're not the right champion, there's someone else out there that is.
Exactly. Like there's the big publishers, but then there's lots of like small traditional publishers and then every step of the spectrum in between. So this is why I'm like I hate it when people get so discouraged by the agenting process or trying to get, traditional publisher because they have limited bandwidth. Some of these smaller traditional publishers are operating off of government grants. They only have so much funds
Yep.
to literally run this business. Um, so that's where like I find that hybrid is such a sweet spot for people who are like, I'm ready to invest in my own work because I believe in it enough. And then when we read it and if it's like resonates with us, like we come on board and it's yeah, such a cool process.
Amazing. Okay. Um, I feel like we we just talked about the bummer of it, which is what happens when people say no. What words of encouragement would you share if there are people that are out there that are listening that are, you know, being creative and doing creative things, and this can be outside of publishing in itself, because I mean, you do all sorts of I'm gonna wave my arms again and be like, you do literally everything. But what words of encouragement would you share? What do you encourage people who are looking at bringing their work out into the public? What would you tell them?
Well, first of all, if you believe in it, like don't give up. Don't give up. Like even I produced a documentary film, oh my goodness, almost a decade ago. And I did crowdfunding. I did Indiegogo,
Oh,
and I
amazing.
raised like $25,000 to create this feature
Wow.
documentary film. Again, it was about the loss of like baby loss
Hmm.
as a community. And so I interviewed like all these other bereaved parents, counselors, doctors, nurses, and I filmed and documented one of my pregnancies after loss and like what the healthy and healing journey was like for me after my baby passed away. And so it all kind of came out of this determination that like this story needs to be shared. And
Yeah.
so I think that if people can get that fire under their, in their bellies, under their butts, whatever they need to like get
Wherever that
moving.
fire needs to be to
Yeah,
get them moving, we're going to set it there.
exactly. So I just think that that's like step number one. Like you have to believe in yourself, because if you're like, oh, I wrote this thing and like I don't know if it's any good, and somebody is like, yes, it's good, but if you don't, like bring in the intentionality with getting it out into the world, then it's probably going to live in your desk drawer as a manuscript with dust collecting, right? So I think that it's so much about being open-minded to opportunities that come your way. I do think it's valuable to meet people, connect, network. Like I think networking is like kind of a gross word. If you picture people like rushing around handing out business cards, like
It's everyone in
kind of
suits being
spending.
like, hire me.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just basically like connecting with your audience, knowing what your story is about, um, and having like a strong idea of like what the story is that you're telling, not just um, in your story, in your actual manuscript, but also like who you are as a person. So when I'm advising people about like writing query letters to agents or publishers or thinking about getting their book out there at all, I always recommend three questions.
Ooh.
Yes. The first one is why this, why now, and why me? So why
Ooh.
this? Why does this book like speak to the world now? Like what is the um what makes this story unique, right? And then the why now is like, does it speak to anything that's happening in the world? Like, why should this book come out now? Like, does it make a difference when it comes out, or is it like at something that's timely, right?
Hmm.
And that's something that I hear often is like people are like, oh, I want to release this because it's happening, something's happening in the world, or like maybe I'm dealing with cancer or something and I want to see my work get out into the world.
Yeah.
So like timeline is something that you got to think about. And then the why me. I think people take for granted like their rich personal history and how that can feed into the book. So for example, I mentioned Monster Slime. So the author of that book is like a cultural anthropologist.
Amazing.
Yeah, so he has like this whole um, vantage point that informs not only the story that he's written, but also informs like the audience that he's going to reach out to, and how we're marketing the book. He's very like particular about like the size of it and the feel and the shape and all these things. So who you are as a person, like if you are putting out a book about botany and you don't know anything about botany, that might be a misalignment, right? Whereas, say you don't have to be a professional botanist, but you could say you have this amazing relationship with your grandma who is from this certain culture and has this way of interacting with the land, and that was passed down to you. And so it's just like that personal story can make a big difference with how your book gets out in the world. Like you being able to share your own experiences, it welcomes people in and then they want to read, right? So I always like, whether you're trying to pitch an agent, trying to find a publisher, or trying to market your book, asking those three questions: why this, why now, why me, just makes a world of difference. It clarifies everything.
That is so, so powerful. And it's so funny because lots of that ties back to some of the work that I do with grant writing too. Why does this need to happen now? Why does this need to happen? Why does this need to happen now? Why are we the right group, organization, person to do it? Like those are just three key questions that kind of fit across spectrum. And
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Yay.
That's such a powerful note. Before we officially wrap up, is there anything else that you wanted to add? Anything that maybe we parking lotted and didn't get back to, or anything that you're like, I really, really had to make sure I said this?
Oh, I guess I would just reiterate, like, if you have a burning project that you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about, like, don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. And like, I think people are scared to invest money, but invest money in workshops, invest money in mentoring, invest in yourself to try to become the writer, artist, author, whatever it is that you want to be, because you are worth it. And your story, your creativity is worth sharing with the world. Somebody needs it. So don't keep it locked up in a little box at home.
Girl, you're gonna make me cry.
Oh,
But I mean, but it's totally true because the best person to champion these things is you. You are the best champion for yourself. And it's
hmm
really important to, to step outside of your comfort zone and step up there and take that chance on you because you
yeah.
deserve it.
Well, that's just it. Like, I think that we rely on too much on the validation of, like, oh, I got a traditional publishing deal, or I got this, or I got that.
Yeah,
And it's like, have the self-worth and the worth in your own work so deeply rooted in who you are that no matter what anybody else says, like, you believe and back up your project. And that is like, that's magic right there, because so many people don't have that.
totally. Take the energy that both of us have. And when people say, "Oh, I don't think you can do it," turn around and be like, just watch me.
Yes, exactly. I love that.
Take that just watch me energy
Mhm.
and make sure everybody's watching when you do all the cool things.
Exactly. Woohoo,
I love
goosebumps.
it. I love it so much. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your energy. I thank you for your inspiration. I'm leaving today feeling uplifted.
Oh, good. That's
There's
the
hope in the
goal.
publishing industry. That's what I'm
Yes,
feeling today.
yes. There are so many ways to publish, and just have faith in yourself. That's part of it.
Amazing. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been so much fun.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's been such fun chatting with Alexis, and I want to take a moment to thank her again for her time, energy, and expertise. Until next time, this is Kira Drogue, host of Sleuth Studies, the Hardy Boys podcast, signing off. The absolutely stunning original theme music you've just enjoyed was composed by Jeff Lee. Sleuth Studies is grateful for the support of Volunteer Alberta, the Canadian Red Cross, the GloCal Foundation of Canada, and the Government of Canada. For more information about Sleuth Studies, the Hardy Boys podcast, please visit www.sleuthstudies.ca or find us on social media at Sleuth Studies.